Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first community discussion about how to be an anti-racist by Ibram X. Kendi. My name is Erica Brown. I'm one of the 4 moderators this evening. And I'm here because I'm a brown person in America. I'm here because 2016 thrust us into 4 years that we are now, facing a new election where there's so much that's at stake. I'm here because of all of the names that we continue to say as we go to the different walks for Black Lives. I'm here for my children who they're light skinned, but they may feel that they look a little bit different than some of their other Black counterparts. But I'm here for them so that they can understand, and I can understand how we can work to be anti-racist in America. So this Zoom discussion will be recorded, just so you all know, and we will also be streaming this discussion to our YouTube channel, and the video will be saved and posted on YouTube so that folks who could not be here tonight can watch it. If you don't want your voice, name, or image to be a part of the recording, you're more than welcome to be a listener in this session. The speakers' names, voices, and images will appear on the recording. And the speakers are going to be anyone who is a moderator slash panelist, however you want to call that, and also any one of you who decides to speak up, which we hope that you will. Tonight, we're also opening up the chat feature. It's going to be fun. We have some wonderful tech folks so that you can participate more fully. While we invite folks to raise their digital hand and share their responses to the discussion questions, the chat opens up another avenue for participant response. And if you need to know where that hand raising function is, it's along the bottom bar. If you click on participants, you should see a hand raising option. And for this evening's discussion, you can choose to watch in gallery or speaker view. If you pin the speakers, then whomever is speaking, that is who you'll see. Because your mics are muted when we open up for the discussion for participation, please use the hand icon to get our attention, and please leave it up, and we'll make sure that we take it down once it's been addressed. The location of this icon will be a little bit different depending on your device, but for the most of us, again, if you click the participation icon, you should be able to choose the raise hand or lower feature within there. If anybody has any challenges, feel free to enter it into the chat. We'll address it. We will be calling on participants after each of the questions. And if there's time at the end, we're really happy to open it back up for more participation.
Hi, I'm Kathy Saletti, and I'm an assistant principal at Kingston High School. I'm here for all those reasons Erica said, because this work absolutely needs to be done. So we want to start by thanking Ibram X. Kendi, the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist. We also want to thank Amanda and Anthony Stromoski, the co-owners of the wonderful Kingston bookstore, Rough Draft Barn Books, for their continuing support and their promoting of Kingston Reads about racism. We also want to thank Jimmy Buff of Radio Kingston for his support. Radio Kingston has been given permission to air the last chapter of How to Be an Anti-Racist on Thursday, October 22nd at 5 p.m. More information will be coming about this. Thank you as well to Karen Levine, our tech consultant and tech Zoom wizard. And thank you to all of you for showing up here tonight. Amy?
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Capus, and I'm a school social worker. I'm here tonight because I believe it's both my professional and personal responsibility, my moral obligation as a white person to do this work. I'm just going to go over a couple of the community agreements. Hopefully they sound familiar. We ask that you lead with a loving heart, that you lean in or lean out. If you're someone who is quiet, maybe take a risk, put your hand up. If you're a person who tends to dominate conversations, please hold on to that digital hand and listen. There will be an opportunity for everybody to participate. I'm confident about that. And we're looking to make space for voices maybe that aren't typically heard or used. Ouch or oups, ouch or oops. If somebody says something that offends you, speak up, use that ouch. And for the person who has said something offensive, no matter what was intended, please take ownership and responsibility. That is the oops. And then of course, there is the apology that comes from the heart. Because this is a Zoom discussion, this may be us, the moderators, who jump in. Please land the plane. Be conscious of not dominating the conversation when it's your turn to speak because others are hopefully waiting. Thank you, Karen.
All right, so hi, I'm Charlotte Adamus. I'm the fourth moderator, and I'm a recently retired school librarian. I was working for the Kingston School District for the past 18 years, and I believe that change starts at home on the ground, and that if we want to dismantle racism, we need to start in our own backyard. So Kingston's my backyard, and I'm really excited to be here with all of you. But before we begin, I want to take a moment to ground ourselves, to land from wherever we've been, and to come into this space. So if we could all just take a deep inhale, and then an exhale, relaxing our shoulders, finding some space. And if you feel comfortable, I'm going to ring the bell and close your eyes. I invite you to take a few breaths with me. So notice where your feet are. Notice your hands. And notice your breath. And tonight, if you can allow one of these places in the body to ground you through this work, the feet, the hands, or the breath. This can be your anchor, a place to come back to. I also want to invite everybody tonight to write down your thoughts. Journaling, writing can be an excellent way to gather what you're thinking. Sometimes these questions can make us uncomfortable. And so exploring your discomfort, you may not wish to share that aloud, but exploring your discomfort on paper can be very insightful, can be a teaching moment. And even when things get quiet, as they do sometimes we've found that we ask our questions and there's silence. What is that silence doing to you? How is it making you feel? Let that be a teacher for you tonight. If there is silence, we're okay with it. And we hope you are too. So try writing, try and see if that's a technique that works for you. I'll turn that back over to Kathy now.
All right, thank you, Charlotte. Now we're going to have a little bit of audience participation. We're going to ask you guys to use your digital hands to answer the next question. So if you attended any of the first 3 Kingston Reads About Racism community discussions that we held in June, please raise your hand, your digital hand, that is. All right. I see a couple, 2. All right, so really I only have 2 folks. Nope, there we go. All right, here comes everybody. All right. Good, so it seems like a lot of you took part. So you should have kind of an idea of what this is gonna look like, what it's gonna be. And for those of you who haven't, welcome, come along for the ride. If you did put up your hand, you can lower it now, thank you. And our next little icebreaker is gonna come from Erica.
Hi, I love icebreakers. And not everyone is so used to Zoom. So what we're going to do this time is using the chat feature. Just giving everyone a moment to everyone's probably looking around their screen to find out where that is. We're going to check in with each other and see where we're at. So it's a temperature check. So it's really just how you doing today? How are you feeling right now? How are you feeling? It could be anything. You could be feeling positively. You could be feeling negatively. I don't want to ever silence our true feelings. So using the chat, just type a little bit in. Really happy to be here right now. Disconcerted. Oh, someone's got a migraine, but they're happy to be here. Thank you for struggling through and being here with us. Going to be able to join from DTW. I don't know what DTW is. So Linda and Tom, if you can type in, let me know what DTW is. Someone's excited, feeling good, a little nervous, glad to be here, and also distracted. That's the story of my life. Ready to learn, happy to be here, I'm assuming. Grateful for this opportunity today to be with you all, which I'm grateful for being here as well. Grateful to be here. Follow up. Detroit Airport. Oh, okay. Thanks, Linda and Tom. They're at the Detroit Airport. That's dedication. Tired, but also glad to be here. Well, yeah, it's 5:13, so on a Thursday. So that's also a thank you for being here. Concerned but hopeful for our future. Glad to see so many folks, and I see a thank you for doing this. Oh, introverted. Yeah, I feel like a lot of us are feeling introverted after being closed up at the beginning of this year. So I feel you, Lisa, strongly. And if anyone has a few more thoughts that they feel like entering in, feel free. Happy to read it out loud. It's what I do. And if that is complete, I would love to pass it off to Amy.
Thanks, Erica. So while we're still getting comfortable with using the chat, we just asked that people maybe could go ahead and say who you are and what you're doing here tonight. What brought you to this, whether it's brought you back to another book study, or if it's your first time with us, if you could just go ahead and share that in the chat, that would be great. Are you guys feeling shy about this one?
Looks like it.
I know. We told you who we are and why we're here.
There we go.
Oh, welcome back, Dan.
Yep.
Continue
Welcome, Charlotte.
Understanding. Oh, yeah. It is a fear, Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. Collecting info.
Welcome to Kingston, Abby. And we're going to talk more about folks who are also interested in anti-racist work. There's a lot going on here to get involved in. So we have a couple of parents also, which is similar to last time. Ooh, heard Kendi speak in person twice, huh?
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, pretty cool. All right, well, we're eager to learn with you and share as well.
Yes, we are. Are we ready to dive into that first question? So we decided we would start tonight with our first question, and I apologize to the sun coming in here. I can't do anything about that. I have the shade pulled, I swear. But our first question for tonight is, in How to Be an Anti-Racist, Kendi shares his own experience with racist thinking. How do we think this honesty helps to give us a space to acknowledge and name our own racist behaviors and attitudes? Any thoughts on that? You can raise your hand. Speak to us. You can put it in the chat and we'll read it out loud.
I
Oh,
see.
sorry, Donna has a
Yeah.
hand up.
Okay, so I'm one of these people that is uncomfortable with silence, as Charlotte knows, but I am so struck with the fact that he identifies the racism that he grew up with, that he incorporated into his very deep soul for a long time, the white supremacy that was surrounding him, and didn't even realize it. And he had story after story about that. And I found that so profoundly impactful. And I really cherish the fact that he could admit it to the degree that he did, and he could own it. It's a lesson for us all, I think, in admitting and owning.
Thank you. Anybody else? Dan. Dan, can you unmute yourself?
Or are you waiting to be unmuted?
Oh.
I think we crossed mute buttons.
Oh, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. So first of all, it's applied to me anyway, credibility, and it was kind of a surprise beginning for him to begin with that tone and with that point of view. I expected, not a lecture exactly, but I expected it to be directed at me rather than more of an introspection. And so it made me stop and think and question and gave him credibility in my mind. Thanks.
Thank you.
I see that Amy mentioned in the chat, create safety around personal expression. And that's our hope, right?
Right.
And I'm sure it was his hope as well.
I think for me, part of that, when he opened up the story, his book with that, just, showed me how deep this goes, that this man could grow up in the brown skin this whole time and still be indoctrinated into this racist world, and grow up with racialized thoughts. And then again, everything else that you guys have been saying, that he was brave enough to share that with us, start the book that way, and invite us all on this journey. Someone in the chat, Jen, is saying that it was eye-opening to see that racism could be internalized so deeply in a Black person. Looks like Dina says, Dina's here because Black Lives Matter. I care deeply about the issue and systemic racism, and as a writer professor, I strive to foster anti-racism in higher education and the arts, always looking to connect with others who want to do this very important work. Thank you, Dina. Thank you, Jen, for sharing that. We also have Lisa sharing here, sorry for the delayed response, committed to learning how to be an anti-racist, feeling so lucky to be doing this with the community I live in. And I'm reading the chat stuff out loud because the folks who are watching on YouTube have let me know that they can't see the chat. So I thought I would share. Rachel, looks like you have your hand up. Rachel, are you ready to share?
Rachel, you have to unmute yourself.
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, your mic's not working. You could chat to us. We'll read it.
Like while Rachel's typing, I think one of the profound moments for me in reading this question and thinking about it was how, pieces of my journey were parallel in the successive steps. He talks about successive steps and how for many of us, our journey towards anti-racism was taken in steps, and we're all at different places with it. And that's part of a normal pattern, that we can start like I certainly started my journey off as what he would call an assimilationist, right? Without even having awareness of that label, right? I just thought of this as one big happy melting pot and we were all going to come together, and never occurred to me that that was actually a racist perspective. And so humbled me to see that and to be able to call it and take that lens off. Very important for this work, that we don't continue with our old lenses. So his journey helped me to examine mine closely and honestly.
So Rachel shares, that her mic was not working, but the function of his discussion, oh my goodness, the function of his own discussion of his own internalized racism to me is locating racism in the structures and institutions that we all inherit just by living in this society. Thank you. And Donna says, good point, Charlotte. Rachel, thank you for sharing. Anybody else on this question?
It's also nice to hear it called out, right? To hear like the ownership. And I know that that was said earlier by, I'm sorry, I think it was Deborah or Barbara. I'm sorry, so sorry. But just that acknowledgement is helpful, to hear it coming from someone else, because, you know, as we share our experiences, we just feel a little bit more comfortable to step into maybe the process of admitting something ourselves. And really hearing it through those personal experiences that Kendi shares just opens his world up a lot more to us, so that we can see more, see what it is like on some, you know, from someone else's perspective. It also helps to kind of open up the little windows and doors so that we can see how in our own lives and through our own experiences, we may have actually seen or experienced something similar.
And I think it takes away, you know, the guilty feelings that some people may feel once recognizing it. You know, it's so easy for that to be a door that shuts, right? So easy to say, oh, I haven't been as aware as I have needed to be. And instead of letting that be a stopping point, saying, oh, okay, this is fine. I was here, I can grow. And so the need to grow and the capacity to grow is in all of us, if we are looking and wanting to grow. So.
Barbara, did you want to talk? You have to unmute. Hold on, you're still muted. Barbara Sarah.
Oh, wait a minute.
There we
It's
go.
okay now.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard Kendi speak about 4 years ago, and I went out and I got his book, Stamped from the Beginning, and that really opened me to the most honest history book I had ever read. And so I've been following him, and he was at Bard a couple of years ago. It was wonderful. So I'm a fan, and it was a big lesson for me, and still is.
Thank you. We're fans too. Dan had put in the chat, to build on that, I wonder how long it took Kendi to be able to be open to others about his racism. Anybody else on this question?
No, but I'll speak to Dan's comment for a second. You know, for me, racism was, I remember feeling all of these biases and like these ways I was discriminating against folks just because of the way that they looked. And I remember 2001 in sociology class asking my professor if someone could be racist against their own race, which is, you know, made up. But so Danny, who knows, you know, whenever his first experience was, I'm gonna assume and only assume it was probably very, very young. My first experience really with racism, just my first experience, you know, because it's ever evolving, how I feel about it and how I react toward it. I was under 10. I think I must have been 6 or 7 on the playground.
So that's when you noticed your judgment of others, or when you noticed being judged?
when I noticed being judged, and then I realized that that's something that people do. It's not just because, you know, of the simple reasons that some kids pick on one another that, you know, we're conditioned out of, hopefully. People really do have a hatred or a negative way of feeling toward folks just because of the color of their skin or where they're from or their religion and many other things.
All those isms. So unless anybody else has anything more, we're going to throw out question number 2. What do you think, Kathy?
Sounds good to me. Although Dan added to his thing, he says, the idea of sharing is very scary, says Dan. And yes, it is. And thank you for being here, Dan. And thank you for sharing with us. And now he's landing his plane.
It is uncomfortable, even, you know, doing this the second time, it is very vulnerable, right? We're in very vulnerable places talking about racism, sexism, anything that really touches our hearts is going to be tough. So our second question, though, is very pertains to this, which is Kendi writes that the only way to undo racism is to constantly identify it and describe it and then dismantle it. So our second question is, why does he believe that we need to call out racism when we see it, even if it can be uncomfortable to identify, right? So how do we call it out, even when it's uncomfortable? So please remember to unmute your mics and we will call on you, or you're welcome to also write in the chat. So why do we need to call it out?
Since no one else seems to be chiming in, I'll chime in here. Why do we need to call it out? Well, we just saw what happens when we don't call it out, you know, 2 nights ago, for those of you who watched the debates, right? Then we let people who are virulently racist have the mic, and they keep saying things and create ugly, unsafe situations. And if we're not calling it out, that has room to grow.
It's interesting that there's so much silence. And so if you have a piece of paper in front of you, maybe taking a moment to jot down what's happening.
And ironically in the chat, we have because silence is violence. And I know what you're saying there, Dina, I get it. Yeah, we're not saying something is allows the violence to be perpetuated. Absolutely.
Yeah. I just want to add, like, even right now it's uncomfortable, and it's, you know, we've got 25 folks in here, less say 5 of us, there's 20 of you out there, and I totally judge not for wanting to be a listener or a speaker. But I'm also grateful for this space for us to be able to come together. These are community members who agree, sorry, all the notifications, who agree on those agreements that Amy had gone over earlier. And I guess I'll say I welcome you to step out of your discomfort and challenge yourself to participate. I know it's a lot, and I know some of you on here, I've had some conversations with you, so you know how fiery I tend to get all the time. And it's interesting because once you start opening up, you find that it's easier to start talking about.
It's so true.
Can I jump in too?
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. I'm Amanda from Rough Draft. I think this question is interesting because when you first read it, your immediate reaction, I think, at least mine, is it's important to call it out to the people who are being racist or who are saying racist things, maybe inadvertently, maybe not knowing. But I think it's probably equally as important to call it out, like Erica said, to kind of just practice recognizing it and putting it into words and being able to have those conversations, because that's really difficult. And I think if you, once you start doing it, it becomes a little easier, and, you can find ways to bring it up and ways to talk about it with people. So I think it's not just important to call it out to the people who are doing it, but also to the people who want to be able to speak up about it, is just kind of practicing.
Yeah. We have two hands, and Amy had her hand up. Amy, if you want to unmute and speak, we would love to hear from you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, and you can see me too?
Yep.
I can't see you. Hi Amy, how are you?
Hi, Amy.
I think this is really interesting, this question, because I guess I feel sort of privileged in this conversation because I feel like I should have the floor to speak. But at the same time, I guess thinking about this question and thinking about the way Kendi puts it, it's really calling out racism to me is really a function of white privilege. I don't know if that makes sense, because I feel like when it's like something that I may call out or have a conversation with my students or with my friends or with my family, it's often viewed as something that Black people are feeling, but it's not something that's real. And so I think calling it out in a systemic way is really important to show the many levels and layers at which it exists. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. We have a couple of comments in the chat, but then I also want to call on Annika. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Donna writes, the only way to make the normal no longer normal is to identify what is wrong with the normal. Absolutely. That's great. Absolutely. Stop accepting, the comments. And I think, Amy, white spaces and Black spaces can be very different. And I think that the things that people will say when it's an all white space can be shockingly different. And so there is a different level of needing to speak, or a different way to speak. And again, the normalization of racist behavior, racist policy, things that go unseen, unsaid, we can't let it be normal. And then Dan writes, racism can be so systemic as to be rendered invisible to the carrier, and it can also be blatant. Kendi addresses that, I think, very directly when he says, let's call it by what it is, that they're policies made by people. And so when we talk about implicit bias and systemic bias, one of the things that he gets really frustrated with, it seems, is that we think of that as some invisible bogeyman, right? And that we can't attack it because it's just there somewhere. Systemic racism feels so not real. Yeah. But it is real because there are people who are in power, who are making decisions, and those decisions have real impact. So we can be direct if we understand where it's coming from. And then finally, Diane writes, you can't cure a disease until you've identified it and come up with a treatment plan. And again, very much so, Kendi references his own cancer as a method for treating racism, right? Identify it, find the specific cure for it, and keep trying. Thank you for that, Annika. Thanks for your patience. Oh, she took her hand down, but Annika, if you still want to say something, we'd love to hear from you.
Yep, sure.
All right.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we can.
Whoops, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm also trying to make my way home, so I haven't been able to participate, but I pulled over now. But I think one of the points that I took away also from so you want to talk about race is like using the word racism and calling something out for racist. The more we do it, the less like reactionary people become when they hear that word, and will actually do something to change it instead of just being like, oh, no, that's not me. That's what I think is one of the reasons why we need to continuously just call it out.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. The more we do it, the more comfortable we become. Donna writes, Amy nailed it. Thank you, Amy. While white privilege allows white people to believe that they're the accurate judges of what is racist about a remark, action, belief when they are clueless. Thank you. All right.
I'm not gonna go too far into what I'm about to say because it's gonna dig into the question that I am going to be blessed with asking next. But something that this makes me think about is, so we need to call out racism, but you can't call out racism if you're not in places where racism is existing, which of course it exists all over the place. Great. Now I said this, it's on YouTube forever and forever. But you know, I used to go uptown all the time or downtown all the time to all these spaces that I was finding myself showing up in. But myself and a few of the other brown people in Kingston used to play a game where we would count how many of us were in a room, how many of us are in this place today uptown, how many of us are in this place. I'm at a wedding, there's two of us and one of them I'm not even sure if you know. So you know, I just hope that we can also find ways to either be in spaces where folks need to have that racism called out, or to bring folks with us into our spaces so that they feel comfortable. You know, a lot of times I hear, well, let's hold an event over here so that it's more accessible. And I'm like, well, why can't we just make it more welcoming? Like, you can like have beautiful spaces that are incredible and have like all this great technology. It's all about our communication and how we're really working, you know, in all of these different avenues to combat racism. And so you can't really call it out if you're not around folks who might be experiencing it.
That's such a good point, Erica. It's sort of like, I think this is what you're saying, but I could be, which is to make all spaces accessible and welcoming, right? That noticing maybe like, oh, all the spaces I go to are very white. Why is that, right? Why is my space not welcoming to people of color? Is that, did I hear you? Is that?
Sure. So it's like calling out the racism in ourselves and in our everyday actions. It's just like, where are they? I don't want to say that. Where are they? You know, why does everyone look the same? Yeah. And also recognizing that even outside of race, there are certain folks, like there's also classism, and I'm not going to get away from racism too far, but there's also classism. So you might have a certain amount of people who actually look like Black, Indigenous, people of color showing up, but they're in a certain class, and that's its own thing. So it's just like, you know, am I accessible to everyone? Can anyone who is walking down the street, or anyone who lives in this locality or is visiting, walk into my whatever, walk into this space and feel comfortable?
Excellent. Thank you, Erica. Yeah, that's a world I'd like to live in. Yeah. I think we have Leslie has her hand up.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. This morning I listened to a video that he was on from Aspen a while back, and one in reference to dismantling. He has a lot of faith that we can achieve an anti-racist world. Not everyone agrees on that, but the only way. But he referenced things like, one would never have thought you'd have an end to slavery in its form, and as far as laws outlawing slavery. And he says racism is something that people have to be made aware and identify within themselves, otherwise it will never come to an end. But I suggest the Aspen video. It's excellent. It was done right before this book came out, but it references the book a lot.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you, Leslie. Very much.
Can I add, Leslie, if you have a link, you can drop it into the chat box, and we would love to be able to use that as a resource.
One of the reasons I didn't speak is I'm a little technologically challenged.
Okay.
So,
So if
but
you
I
want to
can,
email
I
every
can,
one of us, we can
Yeah,
always.
yeah, she can, yeah, we'll put it in there, Leslie. I know, Leslie, I can get the email. It's good. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so unless anybody else has anything else to say, I'm going to pass on our third question to Erica.
You know what, if I could quickly jump in before we go to the next question, I just want to say, why do it? Because it's dangerous and it's damaging and there's too much at stake. You know, why do we need to call out racism when we see it, even if it can be uncomfortable to identify? I think about working in education, and that it's gotten to the point where, you know, there's the discomfort. We don't have time for the discomfort. We can't afford the discomfort. Our kids can't afford the discomfort. So there are lots of well-intentioned white people who don't identify, you know, who either are in denial or don't identify it. I mean, I guess I read that question and thought more about the times that we don't even realize that what we're saying or doing may be racist. And to not have someone point that out to you is such a disservice to everyone.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I'll share one quick thing that happened the other day, and here I am as somebody who thinks I'm so steeped in this. I'm reading it. I'm working on it. I'm clarifying my own lens. And the other day in my neighborhood, and my neighbor Donna was standing with me. One of our neighbors spoke about a neighborhood in a way that I heard it as racist, and I was caught off guard, right? I had that moment of, what do I say? This is really uncomfortable. This is a neighbor. I don't really know him. What did he, and I walked away from that feeling pretty bad, you know, like, how was I going to, like, I need to follow up. I need to speak. So we often, I think it's valuable to notice your own discomfort, but then to not stay with it. You know, I made a promise to myself that the next time I see this person, that I want to have a conversation with him about it, that this is what I heard. And does he realize that this is how it came out? And so we can commit to address our discomfort, right? Because we're going to sometimes feel like it's too risky to say something in the moment, but let's be honest with ourselves and know that we passed up an opportunity, and again, not let that be a stopping point, that we need to take ownership and to speak up. And it's never too late. Even if I never saw that person again, I will see somebody else and know that that mistake doesn't need to stay with me. And so using every opportunity to grow. So Erica, you have got question number 3.
I do. So the book's central message is that the opposite of racist is not racist. The true opposite of racist is anti-racist. The good news, Kendi writes, is that racist and anti-racist are not fixed identities. We can be racist one minute and be anti-racist the next. So the question number 3, what does it mean to have to constantly reaffirm your identity as an anti-racist? Is there any benefit to the fact that you can't just decide you're not racist or an anti-racist and be done with it? I'm excited. I'm excited to hear from all of you on this one.
We do have chat from Dina that says, as a person with a disability and a disfigurement, I am hyper aware of how physical appearances can cause discomfort. To speak to the necessity of calling out racism, even if it makes people uncomfortable. I think that people tend to reveal themselves whenever they are suddenly disarmed by something that makes them feel awkward or uncomfortable. It is these moments where authentic connection, self-awareness, and growth are especially possible. Thank you. And Dan says it's a learned skill to identify racism and act appropriately to counteract upon it.
Anyone else? The silence of the hands.
I'll jump in again.
Cool.
I think the benefit to not just giving yourself or giving someone a label and sticking with it is that it's a good reminder that this is an ongoing thing, that you have to make decisions every single day. And that, even if you know that you're well-intentioned and you know that you aren't going to intentionally, hurt people's feelings or say things that are harmful to people of color, it's a reminder that it's not, as Kendi says, it's a reminder that it's not you as a person, it's your actions, and it's the decisions that you're making, every single decision. So it's just a good reminder that you have to do the work every day.
Anyone else have something that they'd like to add? You can feel free to add to the chat, or you can feel free to raise your hand. We'll get you going. I just love the reinforcement of anti-racism as an action. It's like an action. It's doing something versus not doing something. And for me, that just, it's everything. It's everything. I'm only happy that this kind of gets dropped into now, because I've, calling out racism is calling out really, again, I keep going to just like the oppressions, but like calling out oppression has been a passion of myself for decades. I'm going to go to Jen. Says one benefit is that if you screw up, all is not lost. You can recommit. Awesome. Leslie has shared the video. So if anybody wants to copy and paste that and save it for later, feel free to watch that resource that Leslie has shared with us. And I think I'm seeing that there are no hands that are up so far. I'm not sure if it's a challenging one to answer or if there's discomfort, but feel free to step into the discomfort.
Well,
actually,
and
the second, if you Google the 4 agreements for courageous conversation, the second one is actually experiencing discomfort. So experiencing discomfort is really what is going to move you toward breakthroughs.
Kind of to go along with what Jen says, if you screw up, all is not lost. It goes the other way too. So if you do one virtuous thing, if you do one really good thing, it's just a reminder that doesn't mean, that's not a card to just, forget about it for the rest of the day or for the rest of the week or the year. So it's just a reminder that every action matters, not just the good ones or not just the bad ones.
100%.
It's not a checklist. So Erica, I wanted to share something that I read. Kendi wrote a number of articles in The Atlantic. And I think this was from a July article. And he said that his fear right now, that many Americans are thinking that, if we defeat Donald Trump at the polls, that we're going to somehow heal the American body, right? And he said, and I'm quoting him now, there's no need to look deeper, at police departments, at schools, at housing. So he asks, are Americans now acknowledging racism, but telling themselves the problem is contained? Are they telling themselves that it's a big problem, but it can't have spread to almost every part of the body politic? And so as he asks, will this become the new form of American denial? And this is, of course, for those of us who've read Stamped and other books like it, this is the pattern, right? Oh, yay, we passed a Civil Rights Act, oh, we did this. And again, this is as much the liberal claim as the right? We're in this colorblind, post-racial world, but we're not. And so those assumptions can make it way more dangerous, right? Way more dangerous. So we can't be done with it, or we end up creating a far worse scenario than we have.
Yeah. Oh, we've got some chat messages, and it's LISSA, so I'm going to say Lissa. You first have to learn what is racist before you can change your behavior. I was surprised by all of the different little ways Kendi says a person can be racist. Sometimes you have to fight to be who you are. Just saying you are anti-racist doesn't necessarily mean you are. You have to practice it. There's that action. It's an action word. And Rachel has added, I keep going back to the moment Albert Cook said at one of the Wednesday marches this summer, we don't want your shame. Amen. Shame is fossilizing and keeps us from acting, but action is healing and builds on itself. Thank you for quoting that, Rachel. And I'm going to time check myself. I know that we have one more question, but I just want to make sure that there's nothing else that anyone has to add in this segment. Oh, Dina says policies and the people in power are always changing and we have to stay on top of them. It's a lifelong commitment or else not enough. Yes. Yes, Dina. Like speaking my language. Everyone is speaking my language right now. Beautiful. So it was like that little sigh was just kind of me releasing question number 3. And I welcome Amy to step in and share with us question number 4.
Thanks, Erica. And I think that Dina and Rachel built the bridge. So our 4th question and our final question for tonight is, what is the first step or next step that you will take in striving to be an anti-racist? How will you check yourself and hold yourself accountable if you notice you or someone else is being racist? That's a lofty question, particularly if you haven't thought about it. Ooh, I like that, Rennie. I'm going to back up just a little bit, or become one of the people in power and move things along. Absolutely. Maybe that's what somebody's thinking. Anybody feeling inspired? Rennie could give you some information about how to get there, huh?
I'll jump in. My first step is to step outside of my comfort zone and the spaces that the spaces that I tend to be in. The easiest way that I've been able to do that is by volunteering with a diverse group of organizations. As my friend, and I say that because as my friend and a Radio Kingston show host, Beetle Bailey says, Black is not a monolith. So there is not one experience that we all have a similar experience and kind of overall overarching consciousness around racism, but Black is not a monolith. We are not one thing. One brown person is not going to help you to understand the experience of all the brown people. So I personally, for myself, have been stepping outside of what I generally do and putting myself into experiences and positions where I can start checking myself and seeing how racism shows up in worlds that it may not show up in for me.
Other folks, and maybe if it's not your first step or your next step, what is a step that you've taken that you have found to be pivotal?
I'm going to say that more steps that I will continue to take is to just keep pushing the people here at work who are working with our young people to feel the importance of speaking out even when you're uncomfortable, because the other choice is just untenable. Not doing the work, not trying to be anti-racist. I'd rather you try to be anti-racist and fail, and then we can talk with you about it, than to sit back and say, oh, but I'm not racist. That's the harmful piece. And so just going to keep pushing myself to keep stepping up when I need to, and keep pushing the people around me to keep stepping up and stepping out when we need to.
And I think Kendi really speaks to, the power within our sphere. And Abigail mentions that I'm organizing fellow journalists to take an anti-racist training so they can learn how to bring anti-racist lens to their work. So that's more of that good stuff. Rachel speaks to practice humility, listening, discomfort, and do whatever I can to act within my capacity as a teacher to speak, and also to attempt to speak truth to power.
No, I think it was one of the Atlantic articles, but it might have been the book, Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist, that he spoke of the need to start in your own sphere. And as everyone's been saying, start where you are, start in the spaces where you inhabit, right? Your school, your place of work, your place of worship, your neighborhood, your local bank, wherever it is that you go, you can start asking questions about who isn't showing up, why aren't they showing up, what is in the way, what are the barriers, and how can I be effective in changing those barriers, right? They may be formal or informal, right? It may be perception, right, of what kind of space this is. So I think all of us we have places where we interact. So start at home, start in your neighborhood.
So two things. One, Dina mentioned supporting Black-owned businesses, which is great. And if anybody has local Black-owned businesses that they would like to type in the chat for some folks who are on here who may not know what they are, what some of them are, that would be great. And in the meantime, Dan says, does trying to put yourself in another shoe fit here, or is that too naive? And I guess I would ask for some examples of that, like how does one try to put themselves in another shoes?
Rennie, what is Seasons Givings in an Energy Square?
Yeah,
Season Town. Tell us. I know Barbara knows this too. All right, Erica.
Ooh, imagining walking down the street here. Dan.
Sorry.
Put out there. Sorry, Erica. Go ahead.
No, don't be. I was just gonna say, Seasoned Delicious is a cafe. Okay, Seasoned Delicious is actually a nonprofit and a business owned by Tamika and Martin Dunkley. They just had their grand opening this past weekend, and they are now in the cafe section of Energy Square, which in the Center for Creative Education space. Whew. Okay.
Very cool. And I drove by Ruby Mays yesterday. So I saw that down on the Rondout, heading down the hill. So another brand new, right?
They've been, Ruby Mays or?
Ruby Mays.
They're not brand new. They've been around for about 3 years or so.
In the Rondout?
Not in the Rondout.
Not in the Rondout. Yeah, their store is new.
They've been there for a year.
Okay. I don't go, see, there's a place I don't head. I'm an uptown girl. And I don't go downtown that much, but yeah, that was the first time I saw them downtown. Cool.
Look at this. I had put a link to the chronograms list of Black-owned businesses in the Hudson Valley, but I see everyone right now, so everybody jot them down.
And it looks
jot those down.
Barbara has something to say.
Yeah, starting where I am. This is from Donna, and I didn't forget you, Dan. Walking down the street, imagining walking down the street in fear, because I think that is a powerful one. That we could really expand on. But Donna said, starting where I am part of a group at the UU congregation in Kingston. We are deeply engaged in this self-examination. There is ongoing reading, watching, talking amongst ourselves, as well as trying to participate in actions. So yeah, that's fear we talked about, right? And looking at who you surround yourself with and most often, and where to go with that. I know the last book study, a lot of people talked about family, for better or worse, in that way.
I'll jump in too. As a business owner, we have had a lot of talks. We've always, I think many business owners are always striving to, hire diversely and use diverse vendors and really just try to find ways to increase diversity in and around their business. But I think this year, a lot of people, us included, are really facing the reality that it's not enough to just hope that comes to you, as a business, it's really important to be asking questions of your suppliers, of your vendors, asking why, you know, only certain people are applying for the positions that you're hiring. Like, you know, where do you go to recruit? How do you phrase your ads? How do you, you know, advertise to be bringing people into your space, either to join your team or to be customers or to be someone that you're going to put on the shelves as a bookstore. So that's something that we're constantly working on and trying to improve.
And I'm glad that you brought up a point about being really proactive and intentional about it, Amanda, because Dina tells us that 41% of Black-owned businesses nationwide have closed since the start of the pandemic.
Wow.
It's a big number.
It's a big number. So it's your money, it's your time, it's your attention, right? All these things can make change. Reading about it is great, but it's a start. It's only a start.
So I'm wondering if anybody has anything else to add in terms of suggestions about steps to take, or anything about steps that have already been taken. Or if we want to go ahead and move into our conclusion. Vote the racist out of the White House. Yes, and yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Vote March right.
All right, let's slide on into the conclusion. Before we end tonight's discussion, we want to share some examples of the anti-racist work that is currently going on in the Kingston community. And if you don't have a regular Kingston connection, we urge you to check out the work being done in your own communities. Kingston has a very, very, very active community. And before I move on, I want to say, you know, there were about 150 people that were at this most recent Walk for Black Lives, but at the second one, there were 4,000 people. So that to me says something. It says folks got a little comfortable. There are about consistently 150 people that show up. And so with that being said, I'm going to share the Facebook page for the Wednesday Walk for Black Lives in the chat. I'm also going to share an event that's being hosted by Rise Up Kingston and the A.J. Williams Myers African Roots Center. Is another event that you can go to. Whew, it's a very, very long link. I'm going to share, and there's actually a story tonight that's, let's see if I can get to it really quickly. I'm going to hop off of this call and onto the next call. I'm going to be doing a performance with TMI story. They're inside Black Stories Matter. It's all via Zoom, so if you want to, there's a $20 suggested donation. You don't have to, but you can. And there are a few additional links that are in there as well. But Citizen Action is the bomb, and you have Fanone Fraser's email address here on the bottom of the slide. And you can always reach out. So I'm going to actually toss my email address in here. I introduced myself, but I am the community engagement. I don't know who I am. I'm the community engagement coordinator at Radio Kingston, and so you know, it's my job to hopefully know as much about what's going on in the community. And lastly, I'm going to upload an event, and I'm just going to hold it up because it's super it was kind of super secret. Now that we're getting closer to the date, support Black women. It's the 2nd March. There's going to be a march on October 3rd at Kingston Library, 55 Franklin Street. I put this file into the chat box, but please show up. Please, please show up. Folks are, and I understand life as well. But we have a lot more impact in numbers. TMI is the bomb, Lissa. I think I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Cool. So yeah, join, I didn't even say the details. Next Wednesday Walk for Black Lives is October 15th. No, it's October 7th. I'm sorry. I have a script. Now you all know it. The next Walk for Black Lives is October 7th at 4:30 p.m. I definitely hope that you'll follow them on Facebook, because sometimes they'll switch where they are showing up. So it says Academy Green, but I'm not necessarily sure that they'll definitely be there at Academy Green, because this last one was at Kingston City Hall, and it was about the stop and frisk that's happening in Kingston. But please join us again in 2 weeks here, October 15th at 5 p.m. for the second of our 3 community discussions. But before you go, Amanda's going to tell us how we can support a local business.
Thanks. So thank you again to the moderators and to our tech crew for putting this together tonight, and for asking Rough Draft to be involved. So we have the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, for sale at Rough Draft in Uptown Kingston. If anyone hasn't yet read it or had borrowed a copy and wants to get one of their own, we're selling it for 10% off the cover price, along with many of the other books included in our resources list for people who want to explore this topic further. We also have a stack of pay it forward copies, which are copies of the book that have been donated and are free to anyone who asks for one. We started with about 5 copies, and for the last month, people have been adding to and subtracting from that pile. So it's really nice to see these books coming in and out and going out to the people who really want to read them. This will continue through the month of October, so please come on into the shop or give us a call or send us an email to roughdraftbar@gmail.com. I'll put that in the chat if you'd like to get a copy for yourself or for someone else. I also want to let everyone know about a brand new companion journal to this book. It's called Be Anti-Racist. It's going on sale this coming Tuesday. So it's $16. We'll also have this at the bookstore for 10% off for anyone who wants to reflect and write down their thoughts while reading or while just going through their daily lives. So that's this. We'll have this on sale starting Tuesday, October 6th, this coming Tuesday, and you can ask for it in the shop. Thank you, and back to you, Charlotte.
Thanks, Amanda. This is great. Again, I love that we're local. We love everybody who's come in. We hope you bring this energy of local back to your community if you don't live in Kingston. I ran into a friend on Saturday at our farmers market who wants to launch this in her town. She doesn't live here. So I thought, how marvelous. We want to see this effort spread. So our community discussions would not be possible without Karen Levine. So a special shout out to our Zoom master. And Karen is also responsible for designing our new Kingston Reads website, where you can find our discussion questions, as well as additional resources, books, podcasts, videos, websites. We'll add, we can add resources that we found in the chat tonight to that. So we really hope that you'll use that. We'll put that up in just a moment. And Amy.
Thanks, Charlotte. So I just wanted to point out that in the chat, someone did ask if the chat information would be available after we were done. And I don't know the answer, but I bet Erica does. And I'm certain Karen does. So could either of you chime in?
Yeah, certainly. I would love to I'll aggregate what I already saved the chat, and I'm not sure if everybody else has that option, but in the chat, there is a triple dot, and you should be able to save the chat. I'm not sure if that's for co-hosts and hosts only, but I'm going to put all of those resources together anywho, and I'll also see what else I can hunt down to send along.
Yeah, and we can post them on the website. Absolutely.
Oh, the website. You guys got to check out our website. Karen did such a beautiful job. So kingstonreads.org. That's our website. And of course, we love hearing from you. So please contact us with any questions or concerns or any unresolved stuff from this evening at contact@kingstonreads.org. That's our email. And again, our next community discussion is Thursday, October 15th, and we hope to see you there. Just go ahead. You can register right from the website, and we'll also be sending something out to you.
Yeah, and I think everybody who registered tonight, I think they're registered for them all this time. Is that right, Karen? Yeah, I think we changed it up a little bit, Aim. So I think if you're here tonight, you're good for this series and we'll send out reminders. But if somebody, you know, wants to participate for the first time, they will definitely need to register with us.
Actually, there were check boxes. So if people did not sign up for future events, they need to register.
That's what I thought. Thank you, Karen.
Thanks. Okay. Wonderful. Right. If you thought maybe I'll just try this and I don't know that I want to come back, but we hope you do. Well, that's it. We thank you. Thank you all so much. We'll see you hopefully in 2 weeks. Invite friends and family to join us.
Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye all.